Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. All individuals entering city-operated facilities, including City Hall, are required to wear a non-medical face mask. Those at the table are not required to wear masks while sitting as long as they're distanced 6 feet from anyone else. Once you leave your seat at the table, you must put your mask back on. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact within 2 meters with anyone showing symptoms of respiratory illness such as coughing or sneezing. If you are experiencing flu-like symptoms, we are requesting that you excuse yourself from the room. Please note that when you join the meeting via Zoom, all participants will be in the waiting room and your microphone will be muted until the host lets you in the room. You can watch the hearing live via the City Board of Revision YouTube channel. When called upon, you will be allowed from the waiting room and permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once you have been heard, you can continue to watch the hearing live via the City's Board of Revision YouTube channel. If any participants are currently watching the live meeting on YouTube, please mute your audio player now. I would like to introduce the members of the panel. Zooming in is Marla Billingquist, and to the left of me is Doug Marks. My name is Brent McIntyre, and I'll be chairing the meeting. Our secretary for the day is Michelle Neepin, and our assessor is Brittany Santucci. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Use of cell phones is not permitted except by the approval of the chair. Thank you. The first matter on the docket is 307 Elgin Avenue. And Rocky, are you going to say? Okay.
Can you state your full name, please? Brittany Santucci. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but? Thank you. Thank you.
And you may proceed.
Thank you. We'll start off. This is file number 20-295, roll number 13099068875. Address is 307 Elgin Avenue. So originally, the 2020 assessed value was reduced from $912,000 to $662,000. At the Board of Revision, my recommendation today is to increase the 2021 assessed value from the $662,000 back up to the $912,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to go through your brief?
Yeah, do you want me to go? Okay.
You can go through it quickly.
Okay, perfect. So on page 3, I've just included the income stream that was used for the 2020 Board of Revision, which was 38 stall count times the $90 per stall, and then the net operating income of $41,040, capitalization rate of 4.5%, to give us a capitalized value of $912,000. If you turn to page 5, I just included, or no, sorry, well, actually, sorry, it's page 12. Those would be the rental comparables that were used for that year. Other than that, I have pictures on page 8 and 9.
Okay, thank you. Marla, any questions?
No questions for me.
Doug?
No questions for me, thank you.
And I have no questions. So that concludes that one. The next one on the docket is 49 Austin, and he's zooming in.
Yeah, he's just coming into the room.
Wesley, can you hear us?
I can. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Welcome. Brittany, you may proceed. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Wesley, I'll affirm you in before we begin, okay?
Certainly.
Can you state your full name, please?
Wesley Van Bruggen with MMP LLP.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Now you can proceed.
Thank you. This is file number 20-325, roll number 13091 735000. Address is 49 Austin Street. It's located just south of Pickens, what would be considered the South Point Douglas area for our parking, just outside the downtown. The land area is 59,981 square feet, and there is 176 outdoor parking stalls. If you turn to my page 2, I've just included some aerial photos and one exterior at the bottom. So this is just a surface parking lot, rectangular in shape, and a larger surface parking lot. On page 3, I have the request for income and expense that have been received. A subject sale history, I'm not going to speak to that. There's related parties, so we're not discussing that. On page 4, I have my income workup. So as I had said, this is a few blocks away from our downtown barrier there. So this typically these lots can vary from $21 to $39. For this property, we have the monthly net rent of $34.50 using the 176 stalls to come up with a net operating income of $72,864. We have an overall capitalization rate of 5.5% to give us a capitalized value of $1,325,000. So on the bottom of page 4, I've used my comparable rents. These range from $40 all the way up to $131. I think the top 4 comparables would be located in parts of the exchange. Other than that, I think some of these are closer to U of W, the University of Winnipeg. My income value summaries on page 5. I have capitalization rates on page 6. Page 7 is Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And on page 8, I have the income and expense questionnaire that was submitted. So I've gone through this. They have supplied us with a parking income of $124,945. Their expenses are on the higher end at $87,876. It's an expense ratio of about 70%, so we would consider that pretty high. Normally for parking lots, we're at about 45%. I think it stems from the property management and administration. Typically, we use about, we would stabilize that it would be about 5% of the income, which works out to about $6,247. So that was something that stood out to me when I was analyzing this. If we were to obviously stabilize that and look at it, it brings the expenses down to about 64,000, which is still obviously a higher expense ratio, but so for this, the net operating income that's submitted on here is $37,069. Works out to about $16.70 per stall, which is pretty low. Again, it has to do with the higher expense ratio. If we were to look strictly at the monthly rate and the income, and then apply a 45 expense ratio, like if we were to apply it to the 124, $945, we would get 56,000 in expenses. Again, lower than the 87,000, which works out to about $32.54 per stall, which is close to what we have used with the modeled rate. So based on the higher expenses, it does distort, like compared to what they're earning. Because if we do look at the earnings with a typical expense ratio, it is pretty close to what we have it on the model rate. Just point that out. And then on page 12 is the beginning of my 2020 Board of Revision addenda, which everybody's gone through before. So I don't think I'll go through that. And my recommendation today is to maintain the 2021 assessed value of the $1,325,000. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Wesley, do you have any questions?
Thank you very much. Just one. If we go to page 9 of the brief, I see here under rental income loss, there's bad debt of $5,005. Has that been have you taken that into consideration when you gave your values or when you were valuing the property?
No, I didn't.
No. Okay. All right. I think that concludes my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Marla, any questions?
No questions.
Doug?
No questions for me, thank you.
I have one. The mailer shows the number of parking stalls to be 185,
Yes.
and yet you're showing 176.
We've always had 176. No one has previously changed that. I don't know if it's just, they've written it in every year. The last time someone from our department counted, it was 176, so.
So nobody's been out there counting.
No.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question. Okay, Wesley, it's your turn now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. If the board will turn with me to page 3 of my brief, we'll get started.
Just let us get there first.
Oh, certainly. Sorry.
Doug, Marla, are you both there?
I have 2 copies. Hold on. I have 2 briefs attached. I'm just, why isn't it opening? Okay.
Sorry, and I guess I should stipulate there is a rebuttal for this document as well. I'm not sure.
Oh,
Oh, we'll deal with your main submission first.
okay. I'm there.
There. Okay, we're there. You can proceed.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So on page 3 of the brief, we have just a brief description of the property, some general information, and then we'll get down to the nuts and bolts of the issue at hand. So as mentioned by the assessor, the property is located at 49 Austin Street. It's a surface parking lot located in the South Point Douglas neighborhood. The income approach has been used to value the site. City has valued the property at $1,325,000. MMP is requesting a value of $736,000, I guess $737,000 truncated. If the board will turn with me to page 4. On page 4, we have the income summary provided by the City of Winnipeg for this particular property. As you can see, they're valuing the site with effective gross income of $72,864, capitalized at a 5.5% capitalization rate to arrive at that estimated market value for the site. Page 5 contains our requested assessment. So here what we've done is we've taken a look at the performance of the property itself. So we have $134,899 as a revenue for that property over the last year period from 2017 to 2018. As mentioned by the assessor, there's about a 70% expense ratio on the site, about $94,387, resulting in a net income of $40,513, using a 5.5% capitalization rate we end up with our estimated market value of $736,596. Page 7 contains just a little bit of information about the property provided from the City of Winnipeg's website. This is you can see here it's located in South Point Douglas, surface parking lot, as well as the land area there. Page 8 provides an assessment map of the property. You can see the property is located just below Higgins Avenue there, on Austin Street above Henry Avenue. And then we have a satellite map. The major roadway to the bottom is the Disraeli, and then you have Higgins above, just to give a sense of where this property is located. Page 10 contains just a couple exterior photos, site photos of that property. And then page 11, we start with the issue. So as mentioned, the subject property is located outside the downtown core, has been assessed with a net operating income of $72,864, which equates to about a value of $34.50 per stall. However, according to the rent roll we have for this property from April 1st to April 18th, the property generated roughly $135,000 in revenue, with expenses of little less than $100,000. Which equates to a net operating income of $35,507. Now, the reason that the property is, the reason that we're seeing for this property generating such high rents, we're requesting an adjustment on this for two reasons. One, we see the property is generating rents of about 20% less than properties. My understanding is a 45% expense ratio is used. So if we look at the $72,864 of the assessed operating income for that property, we divide it by 45%, we get a expected income of $161,920 is what we would expect to see the revenue for this property using the city's model. However, we're only getting revenue of about $135,000 for the site, so which is 20% less than than other properties would generate. Again, the other factor would be the increased expenses. So the expenses for this site are significantly higher than what you see for other sites. And the reason for that really is due to the area. So in terms of as we've had conversations with the owner about this, one of the things that they had indicated that they've struggled with is there has been a transient population in the area that's resulted in an increased need for taking care of the site, increased R&M, increased sweeping expenses and clearing that site to try to keep it in reasonable condition. The second factor is because, again, of the area, people have been reluctant to park there in the evenings, as well as a little bit reluctant during the week. So what we're seeing is we're kind of seeing this hit on both sides of the equation. So due to these struggles, we see a decreased revenue from what would be expected for the site, and we see increased expenses compared to what we'd expect for the site. Page 15, we have a article from CBC. Again, this is a little bit after the fact, but it speaks to the issue for what we're seeing. This is the property located right across the street. The Manitoba Métis Federation has it, and they've struggled with a growing homeless encampment, as they've said, next to their headquarters near the Disraeli Freeway. And they've talked about a variety of issues that have come with that, with those a variety of struggles that have come with that particular area. That article can be found on page 15 to 19. On a more general term, if we move to page 20, we have the crime statistics for the area. So as we can see here, the crime statistics in the Point Douglas community are some of the higher ones in the city of Winnipeg. So again, this is comes back to the question and the issue of general safety, which is impacting the revenue for the property, as well as increased expenses, just because, again, there's more clearing that needs to be done on the site. There's more day-to-day maintenance of the site that needs to be done, that sort of thing. Page 21, we have more of a historic look of what the activity has been within Point Douglas compared to other areas of downtown. Here again, you can see this is information from 16 and 17, and again, when you compare this to the majority of the rest of the the majority of the rest of Winnipeg, you can see that Point Douglas has historically had a higher than average number of crimes within the area. So again, making it a little less appealing when you're looking at when you're looking at a parking lot. Page 22 contains just a map from the city of Winnipeg outlining where this property is located. As the assessor has correctly indicated, it's located outside the downtown and outside downtown core. So finally, on page 23, we have the conclusion. So again, in looking at the site, using 176 parking stalls, and looking at the revenue and expenses for the site, we do feel that the expected net operating income of $72,864 is high considering those other factors, and we are requesting an adjustment to $40,513 and a 5.5% capitalization rate. Finally, so if we can, pages 25 to 29 is supporting documentation for this. Pages 32 to 39 is just the most recent ARFI, or the most recent assessment and taxation income and expense information form. Again, realizing that this is after the valuation date, we're not looking at using this necessarily to support or necessarily to drive our value. But if we look on page 36, we can see actually the expenses for this site have increased and the revenue has dropped. So this is not a problem that is getting better with time, but rather it's actually getting worse with time. So we see revenue for this site being $7,743 this last time the income and expense mailer was filled out. Again, supporting the fact that the site is actually struggling more so now than it has in the past. Finally, on page 41 to 45, we have the excerpts from the valuation of income producing properties for the city of Winnipeg. If the board will turn with me to page 44 of my brief. On page 44 of my brief, what we see for parking lot type. So we can see parking lot outside of downtown. This is 25. This is parking type 25. PKL parking lot, no downtown. The net income per stall ranges from $21 to $39 per stall. So again, just reminding the board that if we take a look at the assessed rent for this assessed rent is $34.50. So that actually puts us on the high end of this range. So we believe that we should be certainly lower than where we are right now, considering these other factors. With that, I conclude my presentation, and I welcome any questions from the board or from the assessor. Thank you very much.
Okay, Brittany.
Thank you. I just had a question about page 13. The information submitted here is different than what was submitted to us for the 2017 income expense mailer, correct?
That is correct, yep.
So they do have a higher parking income and they've supplied more expenses.
Yes, they have broken it down a little bit more. And unfortunately, I can't speak to, I'm not familiar with the person who filled out the last income and expense mailer, so I don't know. I can't speak to who did that, but I can speak to this information as what we had received from the current manager of this particular property.
Okay, so when you came up with the net operating income, I noticed the expense values was $94,000 approximately. Mm-hmm. Did you remove the loan interest? Was that what you removed from the?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you look to remove any other expenses that typically wouldn't be included?
So the other, actually, in terms of looking at that, I did notice that one other expense that we removed was the depreciation expense, which I should have removed. And the impact of that is, so that's roughly $2,000. So that drops us down to about $9,000. That drops us down, using this information, to $87,876 after I remove the income loan expense as well as the depreciation expense.
I was just also wondering about the board travel expenses, and then normally we don't remove bank charges or I'm not sure what the rent expense would be.
Sure. Actually, and so the bank charges we did leave in. Again, we feel that that would just be a natural part of running a business. You're going to have a bank account that you're going to have expenses running through, so whether that be credit card fees or what have you. So we do feel that it is actually a valid expense to be considered when we're looking at this. And then in terms of the rental rate, you're right. We did take that when I do look at that. What we did is if we remove the rental rate out of that, that drops the expenses to $86,388.73. So that would be an expense ratio of for the property of just give me 1 second here, of 64%.
Okay. And then you acknowledge that other information was post-reference, so no, I guess, on that. Other than that, I don't think I have any other questions. Just that I thought that the net operating income could be slightly adjusted with some of the expenses that we would normally remove.
Okay, thank you very much. Marla, any questions?
Yes, actually, just one question, going back to Mr. McIntyre's previous question to the assessor about the number of stalls. I see in your presentation, you were referring to the 176 stalls, which was the city's number, not the 185, which was the number that your client had filled out on their mailer. So do you know, in fact, how many stalls there are?
You know what? I don't. Excuse me. Sorry, I was just looking at the income and expenses for the property. So I wasn't overly concerned with the number of stall count, as we weren't doing this on a per stall basis, but rather looking at how much revenue and what the expenses the property is generating.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All my questions.
Doug, any questions?
Just one, after the deductions that just talked about, what is your net income at the end of that?
Sure. So after removing the loan amortization expense of $5,005.26, removing the depreciation expense of $1,997.83, and the rent expense of $6,000, I'm getting expenses of $86,388.73. If I apply that to the, if I apply that and subtract that from the revenue, we have a value, a net income of $48,510.62.
Sorry, could you repeat that? Sorry.
Certainly, $48,510.62.
Thank you. No further questions.
And I have no questions. So Wesley, that concludes this matter. And you'll be hearing from us in due course.
Thank you. Can I just say one? I don't know if we want to do final summary here.
You can.
All right. Again, understanding when we look at this property, there's a variety of factors at play here. But I think regardless of how we cut it, if we take a look at the actual revenue and we take away the loan amortization and any expenses that are unnecessary, we show the property has been overassessed. And additionally, even if we take a look at the information provided by the City of Winnipeg in their brief, by the assessor in the brief that she's provided on page 8 and 9, after we take in consideration that information and subtract out the bad debt, even if we stabilize the expense, even if we stabilize the management fee at 5%, we're still getting $64,409 in expenses, which is actually resulting in a net operating income of $60,535 for the site, which is again significantly less than what has been assessed. So I think no matter how we cut it and which set of numbers we look at, we can still show the property has been overassessed and an adjustment is necessary. With that, MP respectfully requests the board to make that adjustment. Thank you very much.
Brittany, any summation?
We've gone through it all. I agree that there is some issues with this based on the income expense mailer. They have high expenses. I'm happy we discussed those expenses and kind of came up with some other numbers. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that concludes this issue. And Wesley, you'll hear from us in a couple of weeks.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your time and the board's time. Take care.
Good day.
Take care.
So the property
Oh, the next item on the docket is 1963 Henderson Highway.
and the Elgin property's been withdrawn.
Okay.
Oh, it has? Okay.
Yes.
Did you make that guy stand up? Okay, I'm doing this only for you.
Thank you so much. Can you state your full name, please? Do you affirm that the evidence you give this hearing
Okay, Brittany, you can proceed.
Thank you. This is file number 20-343, roll number 04007-255-825. Address is 1936 Henderson Highway. This is a vehicle service related property. Actual year built is 1979. We have a leasable area of 5,600 square feet and a land area of 21,364 square feet. So if we turn to my page 2, I have aerial photos of the subject property. It's located on Henderson Highway on the east side. It's obviously, you can see, it looks to be a vehicle service related garage. There's 2 overhead doors. On page 3, the request for income and expense has been submitted. No subject sale history. And from what I could see from this, as of a reference date, it was owner occupied. So there was no subject rents in place as of April 1st, 2018. On page 4, I have the income workup. We have the 5,600 leasable area. We've used a modeled rent of $13.28. That gives us a potential rent of $74,368. We've applied the modeled 4% vacancy, expenses at 2, shortfall at $4.50 to come up with a net operating income of $68,957 and a modeled capitalization rate of 6.55%. So that gives us an estimated value of $1,053,000. So at the bottom of my page 4, I've included rent comparables. The first 7 would be located in the north end of the city of Winnipeg. Those would be most applicable to this subject property. Comparable 4 is the only one that's located on Henderson Highway. Actually, year built 1973. Start date of December 1st, 2016 for 5 years. It's similar in size, 4,230 square feet, and a rate per square foot of $13.24. The other ones on McPhillips, obviously not in the same area, but also in the north end of Winnipeg. Those ones vary. We have one at $14, $10. Stadacona would be more towards Lake Elmwood at $10.04. Older, actual year built. Then we have one on McPhillips, $15, and another one at $10.50. So for the range of all my comparables, they range from about $10 to $19. From comparables 1 to 7, they range from $10 to $15. I have an average of $13.63 and a median of $13.24. My income value summary, it's on page 5. Page 6 is my capitalization rates. 7, Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And on page 8 is the 2017 income and expense questionnaire. So they've selected owner occupied fully. They've provided expenses. And there's just no tenant form owner occupied. So page 10 is my 2020 Board of Revision addenda. It just goes over our changes to expenses, some capitalization rate evidence, and IAAO standards. We've all gone through that. I won't go through it. So my recommendation today is to maintain the 2021 assessed value of the $1,053,000. Thank you. It's your presentation.
Rocky, any questions?
Yes, thank you. So you mentioned about, you believe that the time reference date that it was owner occupied, but you are aware that the property did sell by way of share at some point in the past?
Yes, so one of our field assistants inspected in July of 2019. So they had stated vacant was vacant building currently. There was no permits for occupancy. That a property or the new owner who bought the shares of the company, which I think the share purchase was May 1st, 2019, bought the business. The business was closing when they purchased it. The person had retired, so we had vacated that tenant out. They didn't state if they were going to occupy it. They had just mentioned to us that they didn't intend to operate this building as a car-related business anymore. No one has been since, so I definitely have marked it down for needs an inspection, just because we don't really know what's going on there. But that's all the information I had from notes from 2019.
Sorry, but just to confirm, you became aware of the sale in July 2019, but you don't have a transaction date.
They had told us that the share purchase was May 1st, 2019. That's just the date they provided us. But unfortunately, we don't have anything in our system for a share
Okay.
sale.
All right. And did anybody go and inspect?
So the person who was last there was July 17th, 2019. They had vacated the old
Right.
business out.
And you got listed on construction class metal frame and walls. So is this pre-engineered style or pole frame style?
I'm unsure. I never did the cost workup for this. That would have been done previously.
Well, it's not just a cost, it's just a class of construction type. So you don't know what it is. Could you tell by looking at the pictures?
I don't think it's more of a metal frame and walls. Normally, I would think of that more as
Like what we call a pole frame style, which
Yeah.
is just.
like this seems to be. There's more of like, from what I could tell, I don't think there's brick on the building, but it's more. I guess when I would think of sometimes like a metal frame structure.
Yeah,
Garage,
okay.
Storage, but.
Now, your comparables, just going through them, they are predominantly chain outfits, are they not? Like, for example, you've listed several Goodyears, which are now Fountain Tire, 1429 Henderson, 1064, 1064
Yep.
McPhillips.
There'd be a Cal Tire.
Fountain. Cal is at
Yeah.
340 Pembina.
Yes, and then the one in Vermilion would also be.
Fountain or former
Yeah.
Goodyear. Okay. Now, were you familiar with their construction standards?
No.
So have you been in any of these other buildings?
I'm not sure. I don't think I've been in any of these for business assessment.
So if you came into one of those buildings and found them to be constructed with more durable masonry construction, would that make a change on what your opinion of value might be in comparison to the subject?
Well, I think the $13.28 seems reasonable. Some of these are obviously higher. They all vary, but I don't think this, like, I'm not sure if this construction class is correct. It was probably done previously. I'd have to review
Right.
all that.
In some of these, for example, number 12, are you aware is impacted by a percentage rent? That's the Boyd Auto Body.
No, I'm not.
Okay. When I take it this is all done by the parameters on page 4?
It would be model generated, yes.
Sorry, model, yes. So the model is indicating a rate of 4% for vacancy.
Yes.
Now, would the comparables below also be part of the same VSG classification? I note that they're all called VSG.
Yes.
They'd all be applied the same. So a chain operated restaurant, auto body repair shop is then treated the same as an independent miscellaneous service garage?
Well, most of the time they're fully like they would occupy a whole building, so there wouldn't be vacancy.
So they're not really an investment property, it's an owner occupied property. So there's no breakdown though on type, like in restaurants, for example, you delineate between chain and non-chain. The assessment department, not you, but the assessment department.
Yes, from what I've seen for certain retail.
But you don't do that for service garage, do you?
No, we do
Okay.
not.
And the same question then applies for capitalization. There's no breakdown on that.
No.
And your table, page 6, which row does this come from?
It doesn't come from a row on
Okay.
these, yes.
So you don't have specific cap rates for repair shops, do you?
Not to provide for this, no.
So how do we know how the model creates them? Where's the backup information?
I don't have any specific capitalization rate evidence for this.
Okay. Now you mentioned that there's an IAAO standard that the reports claim to adhere to, correct?
That would be on page 15.
Right. Now in that standard, does it not require some information on how the valuation parameters were developed?
I'm not sure if it says anything here.
But the taxpayer doesn't have the opportunity to view how that particular cap rate, like for example,
No, they don't.
several of your assessors have now retained an AACI status, and they say they're following the standard, and they quote Regina. Now, when you look at Regina, they say age, one factor, type of construction, another factor, and then you can mathematically calculate the rates by following size. Somewhere in the model, this exists, correct?
Yes, like we would normally, obviously cap rates can change with
Right.
effective years, actual years built, if you're adjusting quality, but
Construction type,
Mhm.
that sort of thing, but the taxpayer today doesn't have the opportunity to see that, do they?
no, they see what is listed
To
here.
see the final number. Thank you, those are my questions.
Marla, any questions?
No questions.
Doug?
No, mine's an answer, thank you.
So has there been a change in, I have a question, has there been a change in owner since the appeal was filed?
No, I did double check that when I saw the share today. The person who appealed it is the current owner. It's just they bought shares and kept the.
Yeah, it is the same.
Yeah.
Because they buy a company,
Mhm.
you don't change a person, the title. So you would never know if we hadn't brought it up.
Well, you did, so. Okay, thank you. That was my only question. Okay, Rocky.
Thanks.
Get your submission.
So Michelle has some rebuttal information, and it's just pictures of the site, because I did ask the assessor about questions about construction, and in response to her answers, which I anticipated, I've sent you 13 pictures
See that?
of the site. And, well,
Individually.
are they? Oh,
Yeah.
oh, there you go. There's some pictures of the back lane, and just some background on this. Is there a date listed on those pictures when you see them? Like on your list, when you have your file list there?
Well, it's just the date today,
Today?
but
Okay.
I don't have an actual date of
You
inspection.
can't click on it and check properties for me?
I'll see.
No, I'm just curious here. Is that date created in there?
Don't think-
Well,
No,
they're
it's
your
whatever date we
pictures.
saved.
Okay, my association with this business dates back probably 10 years. Bob Regula and his son Ryan owned a place. Bob owned this, his son Ryan owned a place just down the street. And Bob had been approached by several developers, and you'll see pictures on page 7. This is the zoning map. So on the top picture, page 7 shows what the place looked like in 2010 and the land around it. So Bob controlled some land in the back, and the developers needed to gain access to the land in the back in order to do any form of further development. And this particular property I appraised for him as he was approached by a developer, and that's when I took the pictures. And it was subsequently sold to the current owner, Irwin Homes. So the date for it goes back a lot further than May of 2019. Irwin Homes, coincidentally enough, became a client of mine around 2017. So we know that the transaction was long in coming, and what it involved is if you look at the bottom picture, the 2019 map, there's now a large apartment block there. So as the apartment block goes through the planning and property procedures, which is roughly 2 years happening right now, they make application the developer takes all his options out on the properties he needs to acquire for his assemblage project, including the subject, and then submits his plans. Once he's got his land in place, he submits them to the planning department, and then goes through 4 levels of council, 5 actually, community committee, standing policy, executive policy, the other one, and then finally city council to get final approval on his development project. And so by 2019, he was finished his construction. So the project started roughly 2016. That's the point at which the options were taken. The option wasn't exercised until 2019. But when in our lingo, we call this the meeting of the minds. Now, we don't have a dollar figure on it. I'm not leading to anything. What I'm leading to is the fact that in 2016, Bob Regula knew he had sold his property and he was going to make his mind up as to what he was going to do. And the purchaser, Andrew Coop, and he made a deal. He's going to stay on and continue leasing part of this business for as long as he wanted to. And so we've got some what appears to be post-reference information. I know from firsthand that the deal was transacted well before the April 1st, 2018 reference date. And that's because of my first-hand involvement in it. So that particular lease that they ended up taking is shown on page 6. And you can see that one part of it was leased, and we worked out that it's a semi-gross rent at $10 a square foot, with expenses at roughly $332. So that particular space is about $668 net. And the building is what you call pole frame construction, which is generally it's a mix of steel and wood framing, just like you would do a house and a standard type like that. It's not the metal pre-engineered, which are the very large beam post structures that are made off-site and trucked into place, and then you put the envelope on. It's not that. It's just built in place, and it's not masonry. So this is the lowest grade of construction you can have in commercial properties is called pole frame. It's not going to attract a great rent. The rents, there's a number of rents that we looked at that were comparable, and
What page are you on?
I'm getting there. Actually, the ones on page 4, you apologize, it's not that we're lazy, yes we are, but we just put all our rents in here so we don't have to miss any. On page 4, the property would be considered more of an industrial grade, because the B&L Auto and whatever's and the electrician that's in there now, they're not service garage in terms of, they're not Fountain Tire, they're not Mr. Lube, they're not any of the franchise operations. They're local operators. And we were looking at industrial rents. So the top chart shows industrial rents and multi-tenanted facilities labeled as such. And on the top chart, there's one 11 mod. That's actually a automobile, what would they call it, detailing place right now at $450, and that was supplied by the city of Winnipeg. The bottom chart, 1985 Maine is a Minute Muffler, and Minute Muffler is a local operation. It's not, that's not a national affiliation of any sort. We manage that property, 3,300 square feet at $533 a square foot. That would pretty much line up on the other side of the river with the subject property, and the neighborhoods have similar location qualities. 231 Oak Point is a larger one, and this was the former Harley-Davidson motorcycle shop. Much superior construction, built to suit. But once that user ended, the rent was at $7 a square foot for a superior property. Strolling down the chart, 983 Wall is an older lease, so I'll move past that, as is 2535 Inkster, but 700 Morey is a body shop, similar construction. My daughter inspected this for the appraisal. The rent is $6. Very, very similar to the subject. Strolling down to Richard Avenue. Richard is a street that runs off Clifton, which runs off Wall. I don't know if I'm going to get this right. I always get lost on my way out there. Oh, I got that?
I used to live right there.
Okay, just by the garbage dump.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you shouldn't have told me that. So the 1371 to 87 Richard are bays, auto bays, exactly similar to what the subject does. And those rents range from $497 to $764. Now, one of those units is owner occupied, and that's the one that's at 607. And we should have stricken that one off, but there's two at 607, so I didn't know which one to strike. Further below that is 968 Wall, identical construction to the subject, very similar vintage. It was formerly partially owner occupied, partially rented. Subject to its sale, it then became fully tenanted. And those are the achieved rents. I believe that there's a long-term plan on that for an assemblage use with the neighbor, but the rents reasonably and realistically are $4 a square foot at 968 Wall, which is the similar construction. A few more on page 5 with some pictures, and just to round out what we're looking at. And again, these tend to be smaller, similar sized, non-owner occupied rental sites of miscellaneous industrial, miscellaneous services, and you can see they're from 575 to 688. So our major difference with the assessment department is that this does not resemble, nor could it attract, a large chain automobile service provider. There's no interest here. The and in regard to the vacancy rate, we're looking at this as an industrial rate because of the nature of the building and where the highest and best use would be some form of small industrial with the type that would also get some traffic, public traffic, and could potentially serve the public, but focus mostly on industrial, like the pictures we've shown you. On page 8 is the investment inventory vacancy rate. And as the assessor pointed out, that their vacancy rates, they're having a bit of a, I wouldn't call it trouble, but I don't know, but there's not a clear direction on segregating owner-occupied vacancy versus investment vacancy. Because the owner-occupied vacancies rarely get reported. How? There is no mechanism. Whereas the investment vacancies are always reported reliably by Mr. Johnson, by Colliers, by CBRE, by Stevenson. We chase them. We want to know what they are. So page 8 is the Johnson, and the overall rate is 7.2. And if you note here, there is no actual neighborhood listed for this part of Winnipeg. And the closest in proximity, I imagine, is East Kildonan. And that's at 7.3. We just applied the overall rate of 7.2 for industrial investment. And on page 1, it does say Transcona beside it. That's by my geographically challenged staff who don't know where Henderson is. But again, we didn't apply it, so we applied 7.2. In regard to the shortfall, we had looked at our estimate of the actual shortfall, which was based on an assessment of 1,053,000. You can see that on page 1. At that rate, taxes are quite high. And if it were down, if the rents were changed to where it should be, that shortfall rate wouldn't be $6.70. It would be around $5. And I believe the city's at $4.50. I think that with a proper assessment, we would probably not have an argument with it. So keep that in mind. We do apply a non-recoverable rate because that's standard appraisal methodology worldwide, except for the City of Winnipeg Assessment Department. Around the world, everybody applies one. I don't think the city can make its own rates, and we're not looking for a fight or an argument, but my company is global, and we have the opportunity to work in every market in the world, and there's nobody who isn't required to put a non-recoverable rate. Banks won't even take an appraisal without one. They said, we don't care what you think there's none. You've got to apply a rate because we're giving you a loan. We want that risk factor indicated. That's number one. Number two, it's always there. So we do apply it. In terms of the cap rate, this type of property is rarely ever sold on the basis of its ability to earn income. Generally, they're sold from one user to another user. But since we've been tasked with using the income approach, that's what we must look at. Now on page 37, there are a number, starting on page 36, there's a number of rates. The first page 36 is, the top number is a new body shop construction at 8%. That's written into the lease. New construction though, metal pre-engineered. The next bunch are these Slate Huntington portfolio, which we have at 8.6%. The ones we want you to look at though are starting on page 37. Starting with 1535 Seal, that's a window manufacturer, 8.29. 100 Paquin, much larger, 8.47. 367 Poplar is a bit of a difficult property because it's multi-level and has had some vacancy issues. It did cap at 10.6%. It's probably fair to consider something like this in relation to the subject, considering what it is. 51 Akins was a manufacturer, a larger site at 11%. We're not looking at Chevrolet because you can see I included it because it's sold, but it was part of a portfolio sale from Alberta sites. And the big one, the one we really think to look at is on page 38, which was one of our comps for rents, 13 Richard. Capped at 8.75 actual, and if you put the city parameters on it, which I had because I had the city's numbers, was 9.24, but it is an 8.75 cap for a miscellaneous mix of vehicle service, small industrial, and that gets us to 9. So the weakness in our report, as I mentioned, is the shortfall rate. It's based on the higher taxes. And other than that, this represents the value. The sale of it, I don't even have the number, but it had, if it ever came forward, and I don't even know what it is, I don't have the faintest idea. It was an assemblage sale. It allowed the developer of the apartment block access to Henderson Highway, because as you can see, the land they built the block on is only on the back lane. So this permitted him his full access off Henderson to do a very large development in conjunction with the land they bought next door. That's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Brittany, questions?
Yes. So I was just a little confused with, you said the post-reference information was decided upon prior to the reference date?
Yeah, well, what would you call the meeting of the minds?
Because I do know that nothing changed over until May 1st, 2019. Like I did do a company search to confirm that, and it was owner occupied up until that date. So,
Right, and I'm just telling you that
Mhm.
because I had personal knowledge of it. I knew that everything was in limbo as they were going to PP&D and the respective civic communities, and everything was decided, options were made, and deals were extended. And like any prudent developer, if it falls through at city council, they tell the owner, forget about it. But those numbers were decided.
okay, but you can agree that it's post-reference.
Absolutely. Well, it's provided to you post-reference, but you know, there should be an asterisk beside it.
You had made reference to the land that's sold behind this lot. I had checked it, it sold in about 2015. It was about 11,000 square feet. And you said the pictures were taken during that period. So is that when you said the picture the last time you inspected when the land was being?
Oh, no, I didn't
split?
inspect it.
Oh.
After that as well. I just told Bram to send me the pictures, and he found the appraisal file.
Okay.
He sent them to you, and that was an older one. But yeah, it just showed where the subject, the rear of the subject was on the back lane.
Okay. Just have some questions about your comparables. You would agree though that Richard is far set off any main road. There is partially it's mostly a gravel road to get into those buildings, and it is adjacent to a railroad track pretty close.
Well, Richard, no, it's not gravel there at that point.
Well, when you hit the end of Richard and you turn right, it's a long building, and then there's just a gravel property to drive onto.
I might be thinking about a different property. It's the two properties on Richard. I don't have a computer link like you do. I've been out there. It's a client of mine. I'm thinking it was paving all the way when I went there. But
it's paving on Richard, but just I mean that the site itself
the
to
site
get to all
itself.
the units is gravel, and it is adjacent to a railroad track that's used quite often.
Well,
I would say it's a less desirable location because, like, if you're on Henderson Highway, that's usually where you get, you're visually easy to find. You're in a good spot. Whereas Richard's it's in an industrial railroad track, sort of tucked away in between like a residential industrial area.
I think that if there were interest from users who were quality users who could afford to pay higher rent, they would be in there, and they're not in there. So the desirability by tenants is as low as it would be on Richard, or as similar. We're dealing with people who are doing specialized, smaller styles of repairs. You know where the new Tesla dealership is, do you? No. It's off Dugald in the middle of nowhere. So that's the highest capitalized company in the world now. So it's just a question of what there are changing tastes.
And then I guess when Holmes sought out to buy these shares, obviously we don't know any values associated. They had mentioned to us that they didn't plan on keeping it as what it was. So currently right now, what is in that building? Like there's just the electric, like are they occupying it all?
No, currently you're correct there. I mean, but we're only going to appraise the property and what it is, not what it could be. And right now it's a service garage. So if we made the argument, then we would come back and say we want massive vacancy on it. And I think that that's probably not appropriate under the circumstances. And earlier I mentioned the only flaw I feel in the report is that my shortfall is a little aggressive because you should come down if the assessment comes down. The other thing, though, one could consider is land value on this, and this might be the way to go.
But then if you take your value divided by the land value, it works out to a fairly low land value for Henderson.
And I didn't do a land analysis on this. I think it's fair to say that land these days generally commands at least $10 a foot, and then in some cases higher depending on where it's located and how it's zoned.
Would you agree that land values typically on main streets like Main
Regent Henderson would sell for over $20 a square foot?
No, for every $20 sale, there's a $5 sale somewhere, right? And one has to go behind the motivation. Now, I was talking to you about development approval. So I had this recent job where I'm working for a litigation on a piece of land. And what's interesting is that the value that is placed on the transaction relates directly to the approval for development. So if you're buying a piece of land without civic approval, the rate will be lower. If you're buying it once your approval is in place, it's going to be higher because at that point you know what's going in there and you know what you can afford. So, if you got your approval for your multifamily, you can calculate like multifamily C2 equivalent RFM, which is 800 feet, I think, per unit. So the yield on this would be 24 units roughly. So 24 units, you could say, low end is 20 grand without approval. High end could be 30 grand per unit with approval. And that's, we don't have approval. So, and when we debate those land things, that's something that we're often not getting into at the Board of Revision.
I'm just saying, in your opinion, it's a C2 lot, 21,000 square feet, nice shape, there's nothing weird to it. And you think it would sell, like, 'cause if you take your income value divided by land, it works out to $13.13 per square foot. Where you see down Henderson, there's more buildings being bought to be torn down to be developed. So
and I'm not disputing there might be a buyer who could pay $20 a foot. I wouldn't disagree with you at all, right? We're still struck with the highest and best use as it is, which we're both have to defend service garage. So if you said it's a different highest and best use as land for development, and you're thinking about $20, that brings you to $420. That's not unreasonable. But again, are we following the rules or not? But of course, it's not $50 a foot for land value, which is what it's assessed at.
For the cap rate, you said using a 9%. There's some, I guess, downwards adjustments for building size, year built, quality condition. I'm just wondering if you could speak to why you adjusted upwards from the 8 for this one, just because building size like 5,600 seems common. Most of the sizes here like vary for CMVSRs.
Sure. Well, the building size, remember, we're talking about its investment interest. So the greater the building size, the more number of tenants you can put in, and the risk level is lower because if you lose one tenant, you're only at a lower vacancy. And a good example is you brought the comp of 2140 Phillips, and you'll note that you have units listed up to unit 7. So there are at least 7 units in there. So if you lose one tenant, you're at 15% vacancy. In the case of the subject, because it's so small, you lose one tenant, you're at 50% vacancy. So an investor likes to see a risk that's spread out more. So in our mind, it's a greater risk factor to an investor.
So the owner owns the property next door. Do you know if the owner is using this building and land for anything right now? Like, are they using it and there's a reason that they're not leasing space out for their own use?
I think, and I'm just not trying to recall, I spoke to him on another property 2 weeks ago. I believe that they're letting it sit as is, and if down the road they found a development potential for it for a good pad site use, they would be interested.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Marla, any questions?
No questions.
Doug?
No questions for me, thank you.
And I have no questions. So that concludes this hearing on this property. Thank you very much.
Do you need a print? You got a printed copy?
I got a copy, yes.
Okay.
And I have all the photos now.
All right.
I emailed you all those pictures.
Perfect. I have them all.
So do we. Doing the right thing.
You know where I got that?
Your doctor.
Remember what Batman said?
You don't wear a mask for yourself, you wear it to protect the ones around you.
Just watched it on the weekend. It was, I don't know why people aren't bringing that one up.
Anyway, thanks, Rocky.
All right.
Have a
Thank
good day.
you.
Shall we take a 10-minute break?
The next one, there's no one. I can start it.
Okay, let's read it into the record and
Perfect, thank you. This is file number 20-266, roll number 06051 752 500. Address is 140 Warman Road. We have a vehicle service related, constructed in 1979, and we have a leasable area of 8,800 square feet. And quite a large land area of 61,114 square feet. So to page 2 is just my aerial photos. Page 3, I've just included, they've submitted income expense, no sale history, and then I netted, I used the information from the income and expense to show that they have a net lease of, at least that's what they state to us, $87,999.96 for the 8,800 square feet, which works out to about $10 per square foot. That's a 10-year term. Page 4 shows my income workup. So our rent per square foot is $10.36, not too far away from what they're paying. Model generated 4% vacancy, 2% expenses, shortfall of $4.50, and a capitalization rate of 6.55%. Same comparables as I used on last property. I would say comparables 8 to 15 or more in the south end of the city. Again, comparables 1 to 7 north end. This one's located on Warman near Lage, just north of Dugald. 5 is my income value summary. Most of my other brief we've gone through. 8 is the income and expense questionnaire, so that's just where I got that net lease from. And page 10 just shows, it's a bit faded here, I zoomed in to show the numbers. And I think that's all. So my recommendation today is to maintain the 2021 assessed value of the $1,285,000. Thank you.
thank you. Marla, any questions?
No questions.
Nothing for me, thank you.
And I have no questions, so